touch.
Oh, got that bad touch.
Yeah, man. Like I've never seen volumes of rain like that since I
Oh,
moved.
I mean, I
The last
have.
time I saw any kind of volume of rain like that was like 2011 floods, bro.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But talking to people from out here that were in that, they're like, that was fuck all compared to that.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
really? I'm sure you will see like a 10-year, 11-year pattern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the
Like the
thing, man.
extremes might become a bit more extreme.
That's the weird thing, right? Is like the whole fucking climate crisis, fucking global warming thing is like even just the short time that I have been alive, I can see that there's these patterns that are like very large patterns. So, whatever, 10-year pattern. So like a good way to like one of the things that I've been thinking about is like Townsville and the cyclones. Like when I was growing up, from the time that I was in like year 7 or something
Yeah.
till maybe year 9, I think we used to have like fucking a cyclone a year,
Yeah.
and then there's been like one or two cyclones since then.
Oh no, there was a period of time there, man, where there was about one every year for a while again.
Yeah, but anyway, my point is that there's like
Like
these
Larry and
large,
stuff came through. Yeah.
there's like these large scale patterns that go over like 10 years, right? And like the only reason I get to notice that is because I'm old enough to recognize that now.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, like probably there's much larger patterns that would like be my whole lifetime. And then there's probably even larger patterns than that that would be like, you know, a couple
Every
hundred
generation
years.
sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah, every couple generations even. And it's like, oh, maybe every 1,000 years. Like, so it just seems like such a hard thing to fucking, like,
Gauge.
I just hate it when they're like, oh, there's a fire, climate change. And it's like, oh man, like, I don't know. Like, maybe it is, right? Maybe. But also, like, pretty sure it's been on fire before. Like,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I think the weird thing about climate change is, man, is like um the small things that people wouldn't generally notice. So like changing the immediate climate of an area, like where that would have been kind of a little bit more prone to bushfires like 100 years ago,
Yeah.
but because it was so open and sparse, they didn't spread as quickly. They didn't get as big.
Yeah.
But like knocking down a lot of that forest and a lot of that and putting houses there instead and having it cleared and just grass allows for them. So that's like a climate change of that immediate environment that
Yeah.
does cause these events to become bigger and worse
Yeah. So
without having it
that's,
as like a grand scale thing.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
even that, like,
So one of the things that's
I
interesting talking to my old boy about, like I remember having a chat to him ages ago, and he was kind of like, "Oh, look, like yes, it's absolutely 100% real, but the way that you've got to look at it, it's not like individual fucking weather patterns or whatever." Um, but he was saying, like, for instance, if you like look at like, it's not on such a big scale or whatever. So if you look at like the rainfall for a year, it's probably the same rainfall. But then if you look at the same rainfall for like a month, and then within that month, it might still be the same amount of rainfall. But then if you look
it's
at,
only like how frequent it's happening.
yeah, so his point was actually the big thing you can see in Australia anyway, and I don't know if this is true, right? This is just what I've heard. But like the big thing that you can see is actually that even though in that month it might be the same amount of rainfall, you're getting like say 3 weather events where you get that amount of rainfall, as opposed to it used to be you'd get 10. And what that means is
Yeah.
that it washes away the topsoil. You don't have that ground saturation. The dams don't fill up. Like fucking it's just not um you know, like slowly, if that keeps happening, you end up with a situation where like the ground just can't hold fucking water anymore, you know? So anyway, that was basically what he,
Becomes what's known as hydrophobic.
yeah, scared of the fucking water, mate, like a dog with rabies.
Yeah, or adverse to the water, I think, in that instance.
Take it away, Mr. Biggie Nixz.
Well, I'm gonna get myself a big horse, and I'm gonna ride it into town. Well, I'm gonna get up on that big horse, and I'm gonna tell everyone around that I'm up here at my house, and it's on you I'm looking down. You won't get me from my house. No, that place goes way too high. You will not pull me from my big horse. No, don't even try. Just get the hell out of my way as I go rolling on by. Biggie Nixz in the house tonight. Gonna let down fresh, gonna let down right, gonna let down sweet, gonna let down groovy. I'm so fly that I could be in a movie. And I'm gonna get me a big horse, and I'm gonna ride it into town. And any which way you look at it, better not way getting on down, getting on down. We're getting on down. We're getting on down. We're getting on down.
Mr. Robert Nixon, Mr. AKA Biggie Nixz, the real portly gentleman. OG, motherfucker. Good to talk to you, buddy.
Hey, man.
So, fucking, I had like a bit of a thing going on where I was like, oh, fuck, man, we know each other so well. Like, what the fuck do I even
What
start
do we
with?
talk about?
Like, that's the weird thing. Like, it was just me and you sitting down for a chat. We'd just shoot the shit and talk about fucking climate change, you know? But I want to make it interesting for the people. So one of the things I was thinking about, dude, is and this is kind of like unrelated to the music stuff, which I do want to get to, but was is the like animal welfare, veganism, vegetarian stuff.
Oh, yeah, right.
So I just figured that this is like a fairly interesting conversation for people, you know, like me as somebody who like I know quite a lot of vegans. I know like you know, I think I kind of understand the ethics and that behind it, but I feel like for some people maybe they haven't had like heard this conversation before of
Yeah.
what it's like to like be a vegan. Where did it start, you know?
And I think I'm a bad person to have a conversation with being a vegan and a vegetarian because I go about it the wrong way, bro.
Yeah.
And did from the very start. Like, it was never about, for me, initially, that I super cared about animals or I was super worried about my health or any of that. It was a bet with someone, bro. It was vegan. I knew, and they're like, "Bet you couldn't go vegan for a weekend." I was like, "Bet I could." Trying to impress them, and I just kind of stuck with it. And then I probably, to be honest, man, through like the fact that I had them been like, "No, I'm gonna do this thing." That's when I started looking into the animal welfare and the treatment of animals and all that kind of. It was never initially a thing for me of like, oh, that is a dreadful thing to do to animals. But that was more of out of a sense of naivety,
Yeah.
and like then because having to have these kinds of discussions with people, of the way that certain animals are treated and the way that certain food is produced, that it was like, I don't really agree with that. But also, more strongly than that for me is the environmental impact of the way mass meat is bulk produced and then wasted.
Yep.
And that was a big part of why I stuck with it.
In terms of like, how do you mean, man?
Well, I mean, you look at meat wastage through like, your everyday supermarket chains, man.
Yeah.
They're just throwing out bulk loads of meat every day because it's gone past the use by date, because they oversupplied, the demand wasn't there, and now, well, you can't eat that anymore.
Yeah. I mean, even just any restaurant you go to, dude, like, you know, I used to work in kitchens for a really long time when I was real young, and just the fucking animals that are left on plates. You're like, oh, this isn't really being treated with respect. Like this is a fucking life that's been taken, and you've just left half a steak on the plate. Like, is that?
That's right, dude. Like,
Yeah.
You're gonna order a steak, eat the whole
fucking thing. Yeah.
But also that's a big cultural thing as well, that like we've got this culture of like over serving,
Oh, for sure, man. Yeah.
It's a big deal to be like, well, for $19, look what we can fit on a plate for $19.
Yeah.
Rather than being like, for $19, we're going to serve you a reasonable amount of food and pay the people who are responsible for producing that food a reasonable amount of money for each serving.
Yeah.
Rather than like, that beast you just took like 5 to 6 years plus to raise, keep fed. It's probably cost you for roughly 5,000. We'll give you 800 for it.
Yeah.
Because we're gonna fucking mash it up into burgers that we're gonna sell.
Yeah.
For $2 a piece.
Yeah, and they'll be stored in a freezer for ages, and by the time that anybody actually gets to eat it, it'll be fucking freezer burned and fucking shit anyway. Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting one, man. So like, in terms of the ethics of it, like, look, I really fucking sympathize with, vegans, man. It's like, I totally fucking get the whole thing of like, well, no, I don't want to take part in like the wholesale slaughter of animals and like the wastage, like you mentioned. All that stuff. Like, I definitely feel that, but I suppose for me anyway, a big part of that then just turned into like truly like appreciating what I've got. Like, I don't just go and have a meal without like fucking being thankful for where that comes from. Like, we're in a pretty privileged position in Western society that we can just fucking go to Woolworths and there's like a fucking plastic wrapped fresh beef like all the time for super cheap. There's a lot of the world that just doesn't fucking have that, man.
Doesn't, man. And so that's part of the reason why, man. Like, if people are willing to either hunt for game, in a sustainable way.
I think most hunting's sustainable, man. Like, there's not much fucking hunting that isn't sustainable, unless you're talking about like fucking endangered species or something. Like,
well, yeah, obviously, like, particularly animals that become like a pest animal.
Oh, yeah.
Like wild boar and stuff, they're not much good for eating.
Yeah.
You can,
No, in Australia, they definitely are, man. Like, wild pig. In Australia, we're one of the only places in the world that they don't have trichinosis. So you don't have to worry about the fucking parasites or whatever. Anywhere else in the world, dude.
Really?
Yeah, anywhere else in the world, you have to be like genuinely worried and like cook the pork to way over um like fucking temperature so that it's like fucking, you know, dried out kind of thing, or you're having pork that comes from a fucking farm, you know, because of the because of the concerns around trichinosis. But we don't have that in Australia, so you can go and
Oh, that's cool.
hunt pig in Australia, and it's like fucking, yeah, you got zero qualms about then putting that in your body. So
Yeah, right. Because I know a couple of the guys up north in Millaroo there used to catch, like, when they were harvesting, they'd wait and they'd grab the younglings as they
yeah.
kind of run through and throw them into a pen and raise them up big and fat and then butcher that pig.
Yeah, so I mean, we still have like fucking parasites and stuff like that, and worms and things like that. You know, in the pigs, but you're always going to have that
Yeah.
in a world population. But from my understanding, anyway, like fucking, you're basically 100% set if you got a pig in Australia.
Yeah.
So but yeah, I mean, like, I definitely fucking get it, dude. Like, the idea of fucking factory farming is like real fucking brutal. But I feel like a lot of the time, where the information comes from, um, is like a lot of vegans and vegetarians haven't actually had experience with farming and like with farms.
Yeah. And that's the thing, man. Like I have, and I can appreciate that way of life, and I can also appreciate that that is a way of life for people. Like, you know, like if you rely on raising cattle to pay your bills and to eat, then so be it. You know, like I don't have to do that, and so I'm not going to engage in eating meat. But also, if you raise them in a humane fashion, like allowing them to graze over a huge green pasture until they're like
Yeah. So, like,
3
in
years
your
old.
experience, because you know, like, so just for anybody that's watching, like, you know, your partner Sarah, like, she grew up on a cattle farm.
Well, not really, man. She didn't grow up on the farm. Like the
Okay.
farm only came into, like Cole only moved onto that farm. I think Sarah would have been out of home when they moved out there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, dude. They grew up in Daybra, but they
Yep.
grew up in the township, so they had a decent backyard and everything.
Yeah, but it wasn't a farm though.
But it wasn't on the farm. No, no, no.
Yeah.
But her pop, um, so her grandfather
Grandfather, yeah.
owned that land. So there's 160 acres there that used to belong to
Their family.
their family, and then he gave Cole 60 acres, and that's when he built his house.
Yeah, right. Okay, that's interesting. So,
Yeah.
but from that experience of even just Cole's place, you know, did that change how you felt about like cattle farming at all? Because it seems to me anyway,
Um.
from being out there, that like that's about as good as it could possibly be for a
For a
cow, you
cow,
know?
yeah, dude. Right. And like, and that's the thing. If all cattle farms were that lush and the cows were taken care of with as much care as Cole does,
Yeah.
yeah, man. Like, I probably still wouldn't eat meat, but
Yeah.
I'd be a lot happier about the situation that cattle farming happened in.
Yeah. And
But the
what
truth
where,
of the matter is, man, it's not all like that, you know?
yeah, and so like where do you define that difference then, dude? Like where do you think that where do you think it separates from someone like Cole's farm who does look after his animals and that kind of stuff? And then like what do you see in Australian beef industry that you think they're not, you know, they're not doing the right thing or whatever? Because as far as I can see, man, you know, and I've known a few different people whose fathers or family had cattle farms, and it all seems like, to me anyway, bro, like there's a big difference, it seems, and I could be wrong, you know what I mean? Like I'm not 100%, but it seems to me like fucking they're all looked after very well. Most Australian cattle is almost all Australian cattle is grass fed their whole lives, and then they might be finished on grain in a lot, maybe. But you know, they spend most of their fucking like 99% of their lives just wandering around eating and fucking.
I think the biggest issue with it, man, is basically how many of them there are. Is another problem. So like, because the fact that we demand that we have fresh meat at Woolies all the time.
Yeah.
So there's like an overabundance. So there's also the issue of deforestation that's happening there, which you can kind of argue either way because you've got to still grow.
Oh, I mean, for sure. Yeah, I mean, for sure. Look, like that, I don't know how good of an argument that is when you consider, like, you know, any kind of agriculture where you're doing like monocrop agriculture, just big harvesters and fucking fertilizers and pesticides being pumped into the ground. Like, you know, it seems like that's not good either, you know?
Yeah, I just feel like, man, a big part of it for me is basically if I don't have to be part of a process that causes animals to die.
Yeah.
For me to just eat, you know.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable if you know, if other people choose to do that. At the end of the day, I would much prefer to see much more like organically produced beef. But people eating it in more an appreciative and like gluttonous way.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it sounds preachy, man, but
no, I get it, dude.
Like, I don't know, like I think if you're gonna eat meat, like at least have an appreciation for where it's come from.
Yeah.
Like, look at how it was treated, but also don't just like eat it because you can, you know, like, and don't try to eat as much of it as you can, like, to what you need, you know, like.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, definitely, man. And so, for instance, like, you know, I with my kids and that, dude, like, I fucking right from their youngest age, I've been teaching them, like, this is beef, this is a cow. Here's a photo of a cow. This is what you're eating, you know. And I had an interesting moment with last Christmas, actually, with my brother's eldest son, Mason, and I was preparing a chicken for Christmas lunch. And, you know, I had my hand like up under the skin, getting some butter and fucking herbs under there. And he came over and he was just like, "Oh, Uncle Cam, what are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I'm preparing a chicken, bud. Do you want to get in here and have a go with me? Like, yeah, I'll show you how to do it." He's like, "No, oh," it's like, "Oh, I hate seeing dead chickens." I was like, "Oh, do you like eating chicken?" He's like, "Oh yeah, I love chicken." I'm like, okay, well, we've got a problem here. Like, you don't like seeing dead chicken, but you like eating chicken.
Yeah.
And so I'd said to him, I was like, "Well, you might need to have a think about that, mate, because, you know, this is where your food comes from. This is a dead chicken. Like, that's the only way you get cooked chicken. And like, if you're not okay with that, then you might need to have a think about if you actually want to eat chicken." At which point, my dad, so his granddad, was like, "Oi, Cam, maybe not your job to be teaching him that, mate." I was like, for fuck's sake, man, like, who else is going to teach it to him? At the end of the day, this is food. If you can't deal with the fucking dead carcass of an animal, like then maybe you shouldn't be eating it, man. You know, chicken.
That's it, man.
A chicken is not chicken nuggets. Like it's not like they're fucking. It's some like magical thing.
Unless you have magic chicken nuggets
Yeah.
Uncle Rob's house, and then they are some magical thing. It tastes like chicken, but apparently they're not chicken.
But yeah, I mean, like that process of understanding where food comes from, man, I feel like is something that is totally lost. And that's where I really do sympathize with, vegans and vegetarians, because like a big part of it, I think, is that thing where it's like, well, if you've lost that connection between you and that animal, then you aren't treating it with respect. You're not treating it with the reverence that it deserves. Like it has given its life so that you can have life, and if you can't recognize that because the only thing that is a fucking polystyrene tub at Woolworths with a fucking saran wrap over it, like fucking there is a disconnect, bro. Like that's not healthy,
And that's the problem, man. There's a huge disconnect about like if you were to show most people a beast being butchered, they would turn away, man.
That's right.
Like I'm the same, man. I don't want to see a fucking pig or a cow or anything get cut up.
Yeah.
And I don't think that if I'm not willing to watch that, then I don't deserve to eat that animal after that happens to it.
Yeah. And I mean, to be honest, like that's actually kind of one of my things, man, is like, I know for 100% fact, I'd be okay with butchering it, like killing and butchering an animal. Like I feel the same about killing and butchering an animal as I do about fucking killing and butchering a fish.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I'm thankful for it having given its life so that I can have life. And I appreciate that. And I have no problems with it being killed. And that's why I would then utilize every fucking part of his body. But the idea that you couldn't bear looking at that, it's like, oh fuck, bro, you maybe really need to think about whether you actually are okay with eating it, because you like that's what it is. Like you
or consuming like products that come from it, like I bet you 900% of the people that wear like fox fur coats or whatever like that could watch a fucking fox be skinned,
yeah,
even a dead one,
or do it themselves. Like fucking yeah.
Yeah, you don't deserve to wear that fox. Whereas a raccoon hat worn by someone like Davy Crockett, you're like, that guy, he made that.
He deserves it. Yeah. Yeah.
Of a raccoon that he had to fight. Like the
Yeah.
raccoon was gonna have him and he won a fight with it. Like it was to the death.
Yeah.
It wasn't, I mean, you might call it a defenseless raccoon. Davy Crockett was like, he's a man. It's a beast out of hell. It attacked me in the night. I had to stab it with me blade.
No, that's right, man. And
I turned it into a hat. Like
yeah,
deserves that hat.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah.
Oh, and a big part of my journey with it, man, has even been things like, so I love my fishing and that, and but like yeah, when you're processing an animal, like fucking taking out the roe, like if you happen to kill a female, which I hate, like that makes me feel genuinely guilty. If I have a female and it's got roe, I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake, there's like a couple of thousand babies.
Yeah.
I didn't just kill this one fish. I stopped it from producing a couple of thousand babies. So floodies, a bunch of fish you catch, and they got the roe. And so, hey, you know what? I'm going to eat that roe. I got to pay every respect that I can to this animal. I'm not going to waste a fucking bit of it. And that includes then, like after, you processed it, taking the frame and being able to get every scrap of meat out of the frame as well. So putting it in a stew, and being able to then get the collagen and those last bits of meat, in like a fucking soy and fucking making it into a beautiful broth that you can then have. Or prawns is not a good example, man. Fucking people just get the good bit out of the prawn, like the prawn meat, and then chuck all the fucking shells. Mate, you're missing out on the best fucking bit. Take all those shells and put them into a fucking soup, and you make like a beautiful bisque. It's literally the fucking best part about having prawns. But we just throw it away. With like that's the attitude, because you're buying something from a store.
Yeah.
And so it's just so easy.
The main part I don't eat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that's and that's one of the big things, man, for me is that I couldn't watch an animal be butchered, so I don't have the right to consume it. And B, I don't want to contribute to what is being like an excessively wasteful industry.
Yeah.
What do they do with the bones of all those cows that they butchered?
Probably burn it, bro.
Yeah.
Probably.
What do they do with the skins?
Yeah.
So much wasted material.
It's interesting, man. I would so one of my friends, you haven't met him, but Nigel and Jess, so they have a little farm and that, and they kind of made a similar decision of like, hey, look, I don't want to buy meat at a shop, because of those exact same reasons, like the waste and all that kind of stuff. Now I'm sure they still do, but they made an effort to be able to grow all their own stuff. And for them, being able to have meat is a big thing. And so he started then growing guinea pigs.
Oh, right. Is this thing?
Yeah, so he's a guinea pig farmer.
Guinea pigs?
Yeah. So he's
I think I'd have the hardest time at all murdering something small and fluffy like that.
And cute. Yeah.
That'd be so rough.
But this is the thing, right? Is at the end of the day, where's your meat coming from? Like
that hair, bro. What a fucking pain. What do they have to shave them for?
No, you just skin it. Same as you would with any animal. You just skin it.
And then they make little fur coats out of like little dog coats.
I hope so. I want a guinea pig jacket, bro. That would be sweet.
That would be disgustingly.
But my point was, though, right, is that, again, if you're not comfortable with processing the meat that you're going to eat, like, that's a totally fair thing. But then don't eat meat, It's like we came from fucking forever of people that the way that they survived was by hunting. And we're so removed from that we look at a guinea pig and go, oh, fucking, it's so cute or whatever. Where the reality is, hey, mate, that's protein. So another example of it is when we're on a diving trip and we're in Yap, I think. And we got invited to what the Chiefs fucking throw in this is for like the ship grounding. Chief invites us over to their island and puts on a feast. And one of the ingredients at the feast was yap in Micronesia. And so one of the ingredients for the feast, or like the biggest, most precious thing that was the ingredient for the feast, was dog. And they only have a certain amount of dogs on the island, mate. And they killed one so that we could all feast on it. And we had fish, and we had giant clam, and we had all this different beautiful food they laid out for us as like a, welcome to our country. And one of the things was dog.
Wow.
And
So
so,
that's a rarity. Like they don't
well,
just
it's not necessarily,
running rampant. Let's just eat.
well, it's not necessarily like a rarity, but it's just so highly valued because you don't just get red meat. You know, you're living on a tiny little coral atoll.
Yeah.
Like the only meat that you're going to get is like fish, you know?
Yeah.
So having any kind of red meat is just this, you know, massive privilege. And so, you know, I ate some dog, and I feel like when I've told this story, you know, a lot of people are like, "Oh fuck, like I can't believe that, you know, you ate dog or whatever." It's like, yeah, but you got to look at it in context, man. You know, for these people, this is food.
It was a respect thing, man.
Yeah,
And it's not just food. It's food that you don't get. You know, like
yeah,
yeah, like red meat. Look how like that's a rare treat that they've just offered you.
yes,
Like you know, as much as I'm sad about the dog dying. I think you know, like it'd be a hard thing, man, because like that's a fucking huge level of respect they're giving you right there.
that's right.
You kind of don't want to be disrespectful and be like, well, actually, I don't eat
Yeah,
meat.
or I think that this is wrong, and I really think that you guys shouldn't eat dog. It's like, come the fuck on. Like at the end of the day, like these people, what, one of 6 dogs on the island? You know, that they fucking butchered just so that we could have a meal. Am I gonna really turn that down? No. And to be honest, I don't see the difference. At the end of the day, it's the same thing as what we're talking about. Protein's protein. And if you're not happy to fucking like kill and eat a cow or a goat or a pig or whatever, then fucking don't eat it. But in the exact same way, a dog is just another fucking animal. You know, it's not like there needs to be
Yeah,
different
and I
rules.
think that's a big thing, man. Is yeah, I think that's a crazy thing, like that people do make that differentiation though.
Yeah.
I'm like, so you'll kill a cow, like despite the fact that the cow's been around for like 20 odd years,
Yep.
probably knows a bunch of people, probably loves them. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But you wouldn't kill a dog who was like a year old, barely know it, fucking it's living on the street.
Yeah.
It's a worthless piece of shit.
What's the difference?
It's gonna be dead in another 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't kill that dog. No, because it's a dog.
Yeah. Well, because it's fluffy? Like, is that the fucking thing? You know?
Having your dog as a pet, like you know, like I think that's where the big disconnect is, man, in our country. Though we've only ever seen dogs as a pet. We've never had to like hunt wild dogs.
Yeah.
You know, like so. But in the reality, when you starve for meat and a dog rocks up on the shore, you're gonna be like, "What the fuck is that?
Yeah.
How do we make more of them?" Like,
Yeah. Yeah. How do we make more of them and then start harvesting them? Yeah.
eat these fucking things.
Yeah.
You've never seen a dog, and then you're like, "Hang on, these things are super easy to train." Damn it. We're at a fucking impasse here. They can be our friends or our food.